The primordial dragons are older entities than the story reported by Homo sapiens or its cousins. They are egregores, composed of several dragonlings and minor dragons with a common consciousness. A hive consciousness. During their cycles of awakening, a mortal anchors them to our world. But they are also entities in search of mineral perfection. There are rare independent dragonlings, endowed with a separate consciousness from the main entity. They are then associated with the subconscious of the primordial dragon from which they came. Primordial dragons react more or less well to their existence, with curiosity or repulsion. Shen Long, Empire Builder, the Ascended, the second son, claims to have reached its mineral perfection. As such, he would have come out of the cycles of wakefulness and sleep that afflict his peers. He thus claims to be the only primordial dragon accomplished. He protects and watches over the Ming Empire that he revived with the help of the immortal emperor. His dragonlings have golden scales. They follow, or even would have founded, the path of the sacred warrior and patrol the isolated villages of the empire when they do not protect the imperial city. Shen Long is revered as a protective god within the Ming Empire but stands away from politics. Heinrich, the Black Flame, the King of Ashes, is perhaps the most openly ill-intentioned of the primordial dragons. His very existence instills paranoia in the hearts of the people. Indeed, his dragonlings, endowed with obsidian and cinnabar scales, follow the path of innate power cultivated. As such, they possess a powerful magic capable of altering the senses and mind. Magic that allows them to infiltrate most societies to the highest levels to divert wealth and carry out its machinations. Its threat hovers above the free cities south of the Great Lakes.
Kriya, the Icy Rage, Time Freezer, is sometimes called the Extinguished Light. His dragonlings are blind and hunt their prey on the ice using their other senses. Despite their handicap, they are fierce fighters and hunters from the far north. She says she sacrificed her connection to light and sight 1,000 years ago to save the world, nothing less. While Kriya is known for keeping her word, she is also ruthless towards her prey or when defending her territories and is regularly in conflict with the Novgorod Empire. Despite the old war between dragons and giants, many clans Jintkins are under his wing.
Suzan, Dissolved Dream, the acidic mind, resides in the Crab Islands, goblin territory of the Red Moon Empire. She signed a mutual protection agreement with the latter, and if she does not participate in the raids, the history books of the Peplum Empire describe her as a cruel entity. His dragonlings with thick brass scales and blizzard stones are often recognized scholars and thaumaturges. She leads an active struggle against the serpent people and their influence. Apart from his struggles, this draconic egregore is rather composed, calm, and pleasant company. Gift, the Time Thief, the Swallowed Venom, is composed of dragonlings with mercury and manganese scales. The latter, often sullen, are endowed with venomous fangs. They are known as sharp and disciplined fighters. As such, they regularly offer their services, especially on the lands of Los Horos or in the kingdoms of the South Continent. They are all the more appreciated because they are able to discern the disguises of the serpent people. Gift also sits on the throne of the merchant kingdom of Silverine in the far south. Lavara, the Buried Ember, the World Forger, is a primordial dragon little visible outside the great cities of the Old Dwarf Kingdom. Under the Appalachian Mountains, she fights alongside these dwarves prey to the mysterious horrors that plague far from the surface world. It gives the old kingdoms a precious support that suggests that its incarnation, its anchoring, is there. It does little to extend its influence beyond. It does not attract any rivalry or enmity that could aggravate an already serious situation. His dragonlings with thick granite and realgar scales master, or even have invented, the way of astral harmony. Its connection to the worlds adjoining the yellow labyrinth of Azifa gives it powerful powers related to healing and flames. Arctiz, the Hidden Winter, the Snow Trader, is hated, despised, and hunted by his peers. As such, his cycles of incarnation or awakening were often interrupted by the efforts of the latter. During the current cycle, Kriya has decimated most of his dragonlings, forced to take refuge in the large cities south of the Great Lakes. He masters or would have founded the Way of the Pact. Way that gives his dragonlings a strange ritual and psychic magic. If Kriya managed to put him back to sleep, it would precipitate, according to the wise, the cycle of awakening of Morana, reputed in the works for a terrifying magic of ice and darkness. If instead Arctis manages to hide and survive a few more centuries, he would take advantage of Kriya's natural slumber to become the major draconic power of the far north. Dian Mu, the mother of lightning, the widow of storms, is revered as the minor goddess of the pantheon of the Ming Empire. She is called Lei Zhu or Lisa by her draconic peers. She is the widow of Lei Gong, a primordial dragon also allied to the empire but defeated and put to sleep by the Novgorod Empire during their war with the Ming Empire. The host of Dian Mu is a gnome from the Ming Empire who is also very involved in the unification of the Druidic circles and is itself the leader of the Storm Circles. His dragonlins, winged and with sodalite scales and blue sapphire, unsurprisingly practice Druidic elemental magic. Varaxes, the Soul Scourger, the Dream Eater, is a cruel predator who has his favorite hunting grounds in the Antigone marshes, so named because of the cranes that inhabit them, which extend from Rubrum Baculum to the heart of the Duchy of Galgi. His dragonlins, with sharp claws, have black agate and melanite scales. They integrate into societies as traders, but are the backbone of at least two major criminal organizations, La Mano Negra on the territories of Los Horos and Unguibus within the Peplum Empire. Evropi, the scrap metallurgist, the poisonous collector, is described, even by his peers, as an ingenious, highly intelligent and patient entity. Relatively young in her awakening cycle, she avoids any confrontation with the major forces of the continent. His dragonlins have steel and opal scales. His dragonlins work mainly as scrap dealers to supply tools and weapons or second-hand forge materials. They also sometimes work directly as metalworkers or blacksmiths. Ozean, Lord of the Sands, Prince of Lightning, appears in many elven legends as a terrible but loyal protector. He intervened many times to defend the different tribes against the giant or dwarf expansion of the time. He was however dormant during the conquests of the Ming Empire. Since his recent awakening, he has worked to reconcile and unify the divided tribes of the region. Still few in number, its dragonlins have silica and turquoise scales. Finally, there are two primordial dragons that are not really primordial dragon, even if their existence is disputed. Their different nature goes hand in hand with their links to the Generalitions Opus to the plane of the Yellow Labyrinth. Ratzel, the Dream Gateway, is not a draconic entity as such. And, the latter exists, it is never really awake. Its dragonlins, male and female, are too little connected and too independent for that. His dragonlins come from unions in dragonlins and humans, or more rarely from unions between existing primordial dragons like Dian, Mu and Lei, Gong. Ratzel, if his collective consciousness does exist, is connected to the chaotic and passionate plane of Feria. His dragonlins are often musicians, storytellers, or artists. Errol, the creator of Ki, the Forgotten Harmony, is at the origin of a strange cult and obscure legends. If Errol exists, he's probably never asleep. Errol's cult brings together many conscious beings, not just reptilians. It would be an exaggeration to consider these practitioners as an egregore. They are little or not connected and follow different spiritual precepts. All, however, claim to be guided by the presence of Errol, and that the latter would be at the origin of the humid and marshy climate of the peninsula that bears his name. Among the spiritual currents related to Errol, we distinguish as majority currents the disturbing ways of the flesh or shadows. If Errol turned out to be real and not an abstract spiritual concept, it would raise questions as to the origin of the draconic egregores. But it is also possible that it is a forgotten divine entity. Or perhaps it is another ruse of the serpent people,